Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 23 of EXP Culturecast. This is EXP's official diversity, equity, and inclusion podcast, and I'm your host, Cody Gilkeson, the Senior Manager of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion for EXP Realty. I am thrilled today to announce our blockbuster guest, the incomparable ESG champion, Miss Peggie Pelosi, is here with us today. She's a board director for EXP World Holdings. Welcome, Peggie.
Oh, great to be here with you, Cody. Thanks so much.
Yeah, I've looked up to you for quite a long time, so I'm really forgive me for a little bit of nerves, but I just want to jump right into this. I think that you've got such a fantastic story, and I don't want to waste a second. So please, can you tell us a little bit about your career journey and how you wound up here at EXP?
Oh, yeah, it's long, as you can tell by the color of my hair. That's a long journey, but absolutely. To just condense it into a snapshot, I've really had sort of three stages of my career. And in the early days, I ended up in sales. Largely, I was a single mom. I was raising 5 kids. I needed to make money. I didn't have the skills to go on and become an athlete or an entertainer or anything like that. So I ended up in sales because I could. And I was introduced to the world of direct selling. And so in the world of direct selling, I started out by starting my own business, entrepreneur, didn't know what I didn't know, just did it. I moved from that to being an independent contractor in the direct selling industry and having some significant international success with that. And then recruited into a corporate position with a direct selling company. So I've seen that independent contractor world from both the entrepreneur owner of the company to the independent contractor themselves to a corporate executive with a company in that independent contractor world. And through that journey, particularly as when I was working as a corporate executive, I reported to the CEO and chair of the board of that company and became very familiar with the responsibilities of a board and what the distinctions between being a board director and being an employee or an executive or a entrepreneur was. And so, as that career progressed, I realized that the time had come for me to sort of take down my shingle and look at what was next, and was invited to join the first corporate board of directors, where I really realized this was a great opportunity for me to take all of the skills, all of the experience that I'd had, and apply it to the oversight, not to be doing the work, making decisions, but to help and be there to provide that oversight. And it was at that time, about a year and a half ago, that I was introduced to Glenn, the CEO and founder and chairman of EXP World Holdings. And he saw the value in having somebody on the board that had that sort of background. And so that's how I landed here, and I'm very happy to be here.
That's brilliant, and we're glad to have you here. Honestly, it was such a breath of fresh air when I saw you coming in the door. I was like, "Oh, I know who she is." Wait a minute.
Really? You'll have to tell me more about that, Coach.
So that's from I travel in a lot of DEI circles and ESG circles on LinkedIn and had been recommended some stuff. Yeah, anyway. But so what we're here talking about today is environmental social governance. A lot of people don't know about ESG and its roots and where it comes from and all that business, but you have a real passion for ESG. Can you talk about where that passion comes from?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. And as we discussed a little bit before this, the language of this sort of commitment that businesses are making has changed dramatically. It's really, really evolved over the last 25 years. When I started my sort of commitment to this world, it wasn't ESG. It wasn't even corporate social responsibility. It was called, at the time, the best descriptor of it was corporate philanthropy. And it was where companies, which they had been doing since the beginning of the corporation, had been writing checks to charity going, good corporate citizen, right? It was really corporate citizenship. But then as a result of pressure from stakeholders, it started to evolve into something more. And where, for me, where it really started, I think back is to when I was a kid, a teenager, and really getting into, all the things that teenagers get into, and skincare and moisturizers and taking care of myself. There was a company that had come out of the UK called The Body Shop. And most people are familiar with The Body Shop. It was founded by a woman named Anita Roddick. And Anita started that company with a true commitment to no animal testing in her cosmetics. And I am still a huge animal advocate. And I would say to my mom, that's the only place I want to go. That's where I need to go. I met myself and all my friends. That's where we would go to get our bath products. And that was a penny dropped for me, where I thought, why doesn't more business do this kind of thing? So I spent my life looking for companies that had that consciousness about them, that stood for something beyond making money. I really liked that about The Body Shop. So, as I began my career, even in sales, I was always thinking about ways that we could extend the mission of the company beyond the balance sheet. Here's who we are. Here's what we do. Here's what we stand for. And yes, we want to be profitable. There's no question. But there's also a huge need out there in the world. So extending that mission out into the world of need was something that was very important to me throughout that journey. So it's always been part of what I've done. I've needed to make a living, but I've always wanted to make a difference while I was making a living.
I love that. It can be so difficult for a company to show the outward facing consumer that this is what they believe in. We have a lot of companies that do it, but nobody knows that they do it, right? And then we have companies like Tom's, right, that gives a pair of shoes that's really visible, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think let's back up a little bit and break down ESG a little bit. What is environmental social governance? What is that framework, and why is it so important? Why has it become more important in the business world?
Yeah, and great question. Because there is a lot of confusion. People just, again, it's acronyms. We call it alphabet soup.
That's right.
Because, when I actually started a consulting company in corporate social responsibility, it became CSR. And people didn't know what that was, what it really meant. It has evolved into ESG. So ESG is really a way for a company to look at all of the resources that it needs to create the financial impact. For so long, the belief was the responsibility of any company is to return value to its shareholders. But what do we need in order to return that value? What that financial capital that the company needs to be able to provide back to its shareholders? Well, we live within a natural environment. So what is that natural capital? We need air, we need water, we need plants, we need animals, we need all of those things. And so the E stands for, it's environmental, but it's really about the natural capital that the company both requires to create its business and its business model, but also the natural capital the company uses to do it, and how is it replenishing that natural capital. So that's the E, it's environmental. The S stands for social in the acronym ESG, but it really applies mostly, there are some other things to it, but mostly around the human resources and the labor and the culture and the opportunities for employees to thrive, to make a living and thrive within the environment of the business. And businesses require human capital in order to provide the financial returns that they're looking to return. So it's taking not just businesses for so long were just measured on their financial performance. But now there is a growing expectation that they treat both the natural capital or the environment, the social capital, their people and the people within their communities with respect in order to create that financial capital. The G is the governance. So that's really about, does the company operate ethically? in what it is doing, and does it abide by laws and regulations? And if it doesn't, chances are it will not stay in business. So the ESG really is just looking at it all for the benefit of the business. It's for the benefit of the business, but it also then is going to do better things for people, for the planet, and for the profit. So.
Yeah, it adds a tremendous value when you break it down like that. It really does.
Yeah.
I'm somebody that sits firmly in the S category of the ESG acronym.
Yes.
That sort of it really it embodies the spirit of DEI, which is what we do. And when you talk about adding to corporate culture, we have one EXP here with our 14, almost 15, give us a month and it'll be 15 resource groups. And we're going to be launching a new women's impact network next month, which will be EXP's first real official corporate sponsored women's resource group. And we really hope that this thing really makes a difference for women. I think women is the demo that we need to be targeting right now. Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think we're just so lucky as an organization to have leaders like you and Carolyn and so many others, and Jessica Nieto, that are here as examples of what a woman can accomplish in this space, right? Completely. I'm so inspired. We've been building the Women's History Museum in frame, Morgan and I have to say it's among the most inspiring things I've ever done to go through and create museum exhibits.
You're about to announce. That's fantastic. Right?
Yeah. So for everybody that's listening to this, we're in the month of March. If you'd like to visit the Women's History Museum, you can go to exp.world/Women's History Museum. Go check it out. It's beautiful. It's wonderful. And some of our favorite exhibits are about the women at EXP. So it's a great experience.
Well, and to that point, Cody, I will just say, because this is just a funny story, because I get asked that a lot, like, how did you do all of this as a woman in business? Like, what was, and again, I've been doing it for, going through that career, that evolution for many decades. But this is really, really what contributed to it. I was one of 5 kids. I have 4 brothers and no sisters.
Wow.
I then had 5 children, 5 sons and no daughters.
Oh my gosh.
So I have been surrounded by men all of my life, and I didn't really know any different, right? I didn't know any different. So when I got into my first corporate boardroom, not boardroom as a board director, but as an executive team, and I was the only woman around this table, it was like, yeah, so I'm used to this. So I haven't personally experienced what so many women have experienced. I grew up believing if they could do it, I could do it. So I didn't have that limiting, which has impacted so many women, and I talk to so many of them. So I love that EXP is doing this, that you've got the Women's Museum, because so many women have just broken through so many barriers to do what they're doing now.
Yeah, it's brilliant. I love it. And we still face the issue that there's not enough women in boardrooms, right? And we're really happy. I think EXP is the land of opportunity for people from diverse backgrounds. I really wholeheartedly believe that. Our percentage of women that sit at director level and above in our company is astounding compared to our corporate peers. If you look, we have in the Women's History Museum all the faces of all the women who lead our 1EXP resource groups. Our 1EXP resource groups are led by 78% women, which is, it's incredible. I love it. And me, I have been working as a volunteer, right? I used to have what I call my day job and my gay job, right? Where I would volunteer for all the LGBTQ organizations at the companies I'd work at, but I wasn't paid for that kind of work. And EXP is the first company that said,
we need you.
Something in you. If you see a problem, we think you're the guy to fix it, right? And seeing that in me it's changed my life. I can't express without tearing up how much I'm in my dream job right now. I would do anything for this job, right? Including leading a podcast when I'm a kind of a shy person.
Well, and I'm so happy to have you. We are so happy to have you. And what a great sort of example of why this is such a strong company and such a great company to be associated with.
It really is. It really is. It's just a matter of getting your voice amplified, the right ear to hear it, and they'll empower you. This is a very empowered. I feel very empowered. That's the word.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the other, the other things you had asked around that is, what is ESG? Why is it important to businesses? Well, one, stakeholders are like what you're just talking about. Stakeholders are expecting it and requesting it, and in some cases demanding it. That companies stand for more than just the top and bottom line, that they actually care about all of these other, sources of capital, whether it's the natural capital, the social capital, the people, the planet, everything that is being used, people care about. And so whether you're trying to attract and retain employees, attract and retain customers, attract and retain investors, now there is an expectation around that. So that's one of the things, stakeholder expectations. Another thing is risk management, huge for reputation of the companies.
Right.
If you are not paying attention to the environment and to the communities that you live in and to your workplace culture and to those things, the company is going to suffer. There are risks associated with that will impact the top and bottom line. And really the other thing is regulatory requirements. These things are coming down the pike now, that we have got to be prepared, that the regulators in countries around the world are saying, now we are going to expect companies to begin reporting on their activity around their environmental sustainability, around their human capital, and the treatment of their human capital, and how the business is being governed. So these are important, really important areas for us to focus on as the company moves forward. We've got to have we've got to integrate this weave it into the fabric of who we are.
We really do.
Yeah, it's not just this stand over here. Oh, isn't this all these nice initiatives? It's who we are.
Yeah, it's so true. And I love the steps. I've seen the company. I've been at this company for 3 years. It's not decades and eons that I've been at this company, but the growth that I've seen in that time, particularly in regard to the environmental aspect. We added to the portfolio of One EXP resource groups 2 years ago. I was a founding member, our Climate Action Network. Yes. And the way that caught fire was really astounding. Like no fresh resource group idea I've seen, right? They started and I said, prove X, Y, and Z to me, and then we'll put you in front of the One EXP board of directors and we'll see if we approve you to join the group. They achieved that approval within 3 months. That's wild. And now we're to the point where with you on in the board of directors seat, and with Carolyn Merchant really focusing in and honing in on the environmental aspect, the company is now building a sustainability department, which is something that is just, it happened so fast, and I'm so proud. And it's just one of those things that I think we already, without all of that I just said, do such a good job. I think the idea of a virtual workplace and the impact that has on the environment is monumental. We've gone through the exercise of trying to measure how much gas we save from not having to drive to work every day, and it's astounding.
Not having to drive to work, not having all the bricks and mortar offices in every country around the world, probably multiple in some countries. So it's just from a leadership and role model and perspective for business, it's outstanding. And a pioneer, absolute pioneer.
True pioneer. Yeah. When I explain to people the virtual work situation that I work in, it's hard for them to wrap their head around. We're so in the future, and the company's been doing this for a long time.
I know.
Right? I know. It's pretty astounding.
It was founded on this. Yeah.
It was. Yeah.
So great. Yeah.
All part of Glenn's vision.
Yeah.
So I want to ask about how we incorporate that into the corporate decision-making process. How do companies incorporate these ESG principles and all the stuff we're talking about into their business strategy?
Yeah. And that is also a great question. And for anybody that wonders about it or is looking at it for another company, and again, because organizations have been floundering around for the last couple of decades trying to figure out how to do this, it's really been honed down to a few steps of what you can do. And the first thing, and we did it at EXP, that I would suggest to any company that they do, is go out and do a materiality assessment.
Mm-hmm.
And what that is, for people that don't know, is where we it's not about us just sitting around or not a board table and making decisions about what we should be doing. It's reaching out to our key stakeholders and saying, help us from your perspective, whether you're an employee, a customer, which in the case of EXP Realty is our agents, or an investor. I mean, those are the three key groups that we go to and say, what do we need to be focused on? What are the key driving issues around sustainability, around human capital, around governance, that you feel are the most important for EXP in the model that we have in the industry that we're in? So we gather that input from them, and then we take a look at it and prioritize it based on the input that we've had. And then we can, as a company, make the decisions around what areas we need to focus on. You can't do it, especially when you're starting out. Very difficult to do everything. Businesses have to make some, again, prioritize. Ultimately, you have a work plan that you want to get to everything eventually, and that everything will evolve as things change in the world, things change in the planet, things change in people's needs and their expectations. But that you can, so it's a sort of always a work in progress. But once you've done that materiality assessment, identified the priorities for what it is you want to focus on. Certainly in the case of EXP, as you've experienced and you have helped formulate, is this one EXP? Is this world of creating an environment for all people, for the diversity of all people, and creating equitable opportunities, creating inclusiveness, and creating a culture of belonging. I mean, that is one of the key priorities for EXP as a result of our materiality assessment. Also looking at climate solutions and what we can do even better, even though we've, dramatically gotten a head start because of our virtual presence. But so that's number one. So then setting the goals around each one of those things. Where do we want to go? How are we going to get there? Once we've done that, is being able to communicate that authentically to all stakeholders in the way that they want to hear it. And we've got so many great communication tools now, and EXP does a great job of all of this through One EXP, through our social media channels, through all of everything, all the platforms that we have. A great job of being able to communicate with shareholders. We'll soon, over the course of the next year or so, be having to communicate that to government regulators also, in a really transparent and doing it with integrity. It's absolute. We are not claiming to have done anything that we haven't done. We're not claiming to make something important that really isn't important to us. It has to be authentic, has to be who we are, has to be woven into the fabric of the company and who we are. So we've done the materiality assessment, we've set our priorities, we've set the goals and targets around those things, we communicate it, and then we've got to really start measuring it and reporting on those measurements, whether we achieve our goals or not. It's just, again, being transparent about it, saying, here's where we were aiming for, here's where we got, or we far exceeded our goals. But that's really the best way to do it for anyone to do it, is to know what it is you want to do and gather input to make that decision. And then just be really clear about how you're getting there.
Yeah, I think that that trackable aspect, that reportable aspect is something that so many companies have struggled with. And I think it's something that, there is a bit of a learning curve to, but it is provable and it is demonstrable, right? And we do that. We do a really in-depth review of, in one EXP, our primary source of review is workplace, and our workplace groups for our different resource groups. And we monitor what types of posts catch attention, which ones are controversial, which ones have negative comments, which ones have a ton of positive comments, who has likes, who has comments. We measure all of this, and as well as the growth stream of all of our groups. And I am thrilled to say that we have seen steady growth in all categories since we started this. And I think it's a beautiful thing to watch it grow and thrive. And, it's not, it proves it for anybody that needs proof that this does have an effect on your company's culture. And it does, in a sense, then have an effect on your customer. In this case, the agents, right? Our agents, we have a number of agents, a great number of agents who stay because of the culture.
Yeah, great. I am so important, so good. And it is a big part of culture, for sure.
Yeah. So let's talk about some companies that have successfully used ESG. Can you provide some examples of companies that have successfully integrated this stuff and had a positive impact on their business performance?
There are many of them. And, for part of my career, in between my direct selling career and this board work that I've done, I did have a consulting practice in what at the time was called corporate social responsibility, and worked with so many companies. We really had a focus. It was before the E and the G was there. It was really about people. It was about culture, and it was about community. Mm-hmm. And so the work that I was doing there was really helping businesses, both little small companies and Fortune 100 companies. I developed strategy around how they were going to show up in the S category of ESG, really creating social impact. It was really about creating social impact. But in looking at who were the role models? Who was I looking at to help me with this, road that I had chosen to take? And one of them at the time, there is no question, one of the early ones for me was Patagonia. And Patagonia stands out as a leader in this world. For anybody that doesn't know Patagonia, they're the outdoor clothing wear. The company was founded by Yvon Chouinard, just a lovely French Canadian, actually, and happy to be a Canadian here on this call with you. He was a mountain climber, and he just had a passion for the environment. And he was climbing in South America a lot, and thus the company was called Patagonia. But he really wanted to create gear for mountain climbers that was sustainable. That could be, that would last a long time, that could be reused. And so that's how that company started. And when I had the pleasure of interviewing Yvon Chouinard for a book that I was writing back 20-something years ago, and he told me at the time, so this is, to one of your points, why is this good for business? He had this sustainable company. He had just written a book called Let My People Go Surfing. And that tells you what corporate culture was to him. It was create a culture where people love to, we support what they want, who they are and what they want to do, but we provide them with a source of income, and we have a business to run. And we want that business to be profitable, or we can't stay in business. But he told me at the time that for every job they posted, and this was at least 20 years ago, for every job they posted, they had over 1,100 applications. Wow. So that, again, if attracting and retaining talent is important, you create a culture like that, people want to be part of it. That's why I was saying to you, Cody, for like what you've done with One EXP, is part of that culture that just there are people that want to be part of something that stands for that. Patagonia has always been one of my favorite. Another is Unilever. Unilever, the huge consumer packaged goods company, which for probably a decade, has been considered the most sustainable company in the world. And that was largely a result of the CEO for that decade, Paul Pullman. So Paul Pullman, if you're following the ESG world, you know who he is, because he wrote a book a few years ago called Net Zero. And the tagline of Net Zero, how businesses can thrive by giving more than they take.
Mm.
And he has a model for large publicly traded companies on how to do this well. And he really went, he introduces this concept of, the challenge for businesses, particularly publicly traded companies, is they've got this quarterly expectation to return money to shareholders, right? So it causes them to tighten the reins on spending if it's not going to show that short-term return on that investment. Well, commitments in this are not short-term. They're the turnaround, the ability to see returns on investment in environmental solutions, which in the case of Unilever was largely manufacturing, packaging, all of those things that went against all of the environmental sort of understanding now of what it meant to be sustainable. They had to make massive shifts. So he took the company from reporting quarterly to their shareholders to reporting annually. So he didn't have that 3-month, we've got to get it, he at least gave themselves a little more time. Anyway, very successful company, incredible leader. In fact, I have taken gone through a program for directors, a certification program for directors around ESG, and he's on the faculty. So Paul Pullman's been a huge influence on me. I mean, those are a couple of companies, big companies. Why it's good for business, that company I went to work for in the direct selling industry is a company I'm obviously still very passionate about it. I'm going to use the name of the company because I'm proud of them. It's USANA Health Sciences, manufacturer of nutritional supplements. And I was hired as their vice president of sales. At the time, the company's stock was, had plummeted. The sales had been stagnant for years. And when I was hired, I came in with that belief, that sort of body shop, the Patagonia belief. And I said, what do we do for the community? Like, what's our social, what social impact are we wanting to make? The vision was, a world free from hunger and pain. It was about creating the healthiest family on earth. Long story short, set up for USANA, which was a small company at the time, what is now a foundation, a corporate foundation, where we were about extending the mission beyond the balance sheet and getting nutritional supplements and cellular nutrition into the hands and bodies of people that otherwise would not have access to it.
Wow.
And in the very short time that I was there, the sales of the company more than doubled, went from 120 to 270 million, and the share value went up over 70%. It was a hugely exciting time. And there were no new markets, there were no new products, the pricing hadn't changed, none of it. It was about the culture. We had created a company that we were reaching out, all employees, all customers could get engaged with this program, could roll up their sleeves collectively, go out and volunteer in their communities. And it had a dramatic impact on the top and the bottom line. But what became very clear was that was a cultural distinction. We created an environment where a company that we were attracting and retaining great talent. We had created trust and loyalty in the company. Productivity went up as a result of that. It was good for business. Customer satisfaction and loyalty went up. So, there was just a strong belief that this was good for business. It's not just about doing good. It's not just about wanting to do the right thing. It's the right thing for everyone. So
yeah,
those are some examples. I could go on and on.
those are solid examples. I think Patagonia is one of the, it's one of those from the top line when you start talking about this stuff. That's a company that people should know. Yeah. So this doesn't come without obstacles. So I want to get your input a little bit on what challenges companies face when they try implementing ESG initiatives, and how do they overcome those obstacles?
Yes, and there are lots of them, and why I've alluded to one of them, and that's that balancing the short and the long-term impact. Again, especially for companies that trade on the public markets, is that they have this responsibility to return to shareholders, and they're reporting on that every quarter. So that's one of the things. So it's resources. They can be resource restrained if other things aren't happening in a way, or if they don't have the courage to say, hey, we're making this investment right now. We're making this investment. We know for the long-term sustainability of the business, we have to do this. And many companies do, but many companies do not. And if this is not something that that is truly woven into who they are and what they stand for, it's one of the first things that will get dropped in any investments in this kind of thing. Because it's from a short-term results, it doesn't make sense. The long-term sustainability of the company is dependent on it. It's dependent to be able to attract and retain the right people, to create that workplace culture, to meet all the regulatory requirements around environmental standards. Because if you're not, you will not be in business. You'll just go and be forced out of business. So that's certainly one of them, is balancing the short and long term. Measuring impact can be hard, again, because it can be so long term. So that's one of the things that is a challenge for businesses, is how do we know? Like, if we're investing in the community, if we're doing some of these great things that so many companies do. I'm doing some work right now with a company called Canada Goose. I don't know if you know Canada Goose.
I don't know Canada Goose.
Oh, well, Google it.
Okay.
And Google their corporate citizenship. It's also an outdoor wear company, and they're global. The work that they do is just, but it's hard to measure the impact that they're having, other than just knowing they're doing the right thing. So, if there's an expectation that they can measure it and show the return on it, it can be challenging sometimes. Aligning it with their business goals, so that it's not greenwashing, that they're not doing it, but they understand the value to business by doing this, by reducing their environmental footprint. Yeah, there may be an investment up front, but in the long term, there will be lots of savings if they do it well. So aligning it with those business goals, but also getting stakeholder buy-in.
It's true, yeah.
Stakeholder buy-in, I mean, to your point, you've talked about it. I've certainly talked about it. I've witnessed it, how it can improve a corporate culture. But not all stakeholders believe that this should be important. Okay? So whether that's, again, looking at employees, where I do believe the majority of employees think it's important, or otherwise they probably wouldn't be working for the company.
Right.
Customers, same thing. For customers, we want them to know that we're doing this, but to not all of them this is important, right? So you've got to be able to balance all of that. That's, one of the challenges that companies have. The investment community is growing dramatically, how much their expectations have grown around this. And again, that is because of the risk management, the risk mitigation piece of it.
Right.
We look at environmental risks, and I know there are people that do not believe that there are environmental risks. So those people, if they're listening to this, they're probably not. Probably not. That's my point. But if they are, this could be something that they would disagree with. But that not just about what we're doing as a business and how what greenhouse gases we're emitting, what we're dealing with water treatment, how we're dealing with waste, all of those things around the environment. It's how it could impact us. the climate has changed. To call it climate change or not, the climate is changing, and there are very, very horrible climate events taking place, disastrous climate events taking place that can impact our customers, our agents, could impact the communities that they live in.
Right.
So that's going to impact their livelihoods. So it's not just what we're doing, but it's how it's impacting us.
It's so correct. And it's that, people get triggered by the word sustainability, but that really is what we're talking about. That's a piece of it. It's corporate sustainability, business sustainability, and in the face of all these climate disasters, which are undeniable, how do we sustain our business through those?
Through those.
Right.
So that's why the investment community is saying, no, these are real risks. So we need to know that these companies are aware of what those are, have mitigation plans in place, know what their recovery plans would be if this was to happen to them. So those are really some of the biggest challenges.
Yeah, it's great. And I will say that not a small number of times I've heard the question in the face of any programming that we put on from a DEI perspective: what does this have to do with business? What does this have to do with real estate? And I hope that the people who have asked those questions are listening to this episode, because I think it's made a really solid case, right?
I hope so too.
Yeah.
Because it does impact business.
It does.
Your ability to attract and retain good talent impacts business. Every company needs good, strong people, and people that have an intelligence, not just an intellectual intelligence, not just experiential intelligence, but the emotional intelligence, particularly in a virtual environment, to create that place that people want to belong to.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's why I never shut up about this being my dream job, and how thrilled I am to have been given this opportunity when it didn't have to be given to me. And I think it's a great example of why it's how I don't think there's a greater attraction tool than me being out here unable to shut up about how, So
the challenge for you is people are going to go, well, I want your job, Cody.
Yeah, right.
Dream job, right?
Right. And lift while climbing, right? If the next person comes up behind me that I've helped to get here and they're better at it than me, honey, take it. I'd rather the company be good, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And there's been so many that I've seen really take what we offer at 1EXP and just set the world on fire with their talent and grow. And it really is astounding. I'm going to call out somebody in particular. I know she's watching this, but Kimberly Mooney, if you're watching this, watching you succeed and grow, I've never seen anybody take an opportunity by the horns like you have. And just wanted to call you out here. I like to do that for people. I'm embarrassing a woman right now, but it's all right.
Oh, Kimberly. I'm there for
Yeah. So what are some common misconceptions that we get about ESG? We talked about this a little bit already, but how do we debunk these things?
I'd say one of them is that when people hear the term ESG, again, a lot of people don't even know what that acronym stands for, nor do they necessarily need to.
Right.
It's more about a conceptual thing, but they think it is just about environmental issues. That is one of the biggest misconceptions. It was like the words corporate social responsibility, which were mostly the same thing. It was about being responsible, thought it was just about social issues. They didn't think it was about the environment. So it's just that's one of them. Another group of people that think this is a passing fad. I hear it all the time. Oh yeah, that's going to go away. Right. And there's been efforts. There's no question. There's a small percentage of the population that believes that this is not the right thing for business. Mm-hmm. I disagree with them. It is not a passing fad. It is not going away. I don't believe that for 1 second. That's all I can do we can agree to disagree.
Right.
A lot of people think it's only for certain industries. Like if you're not in the extraction industry, if you're not mining or oil and gas or coal or if you're not putting toxins into the water, our water systems, then you don't need to think about it. That's not true. Every single company that exists, virtually or not, has an environmental footprint, and it's how you steward that environmental footprint that's important.
So true.
So just, taking a look at everything you do on a day-to-day basis and what can you be doing better. And it's just a great lesson to teach your employees, for them to be teaching their kids. So it's for all businesses to consider, particularly the social side of it, particularly that human resources side. That it's expensive and it doesn't generate returns. Again, we can agree to disagree. There can be huge investments in companies that need to make a big pivot or a big transition. That's an investment, but they're doing it because they see the long-term return on it. So I do believe that there is going to be a return, as does the investment community. They wouldn't be looking for it. So there is resounding evidence that these principles of ESG are good for business. And so that's just, those are some of the common misconceptions. And, as you said so eloquently, you just get out there and keep communicating about it. I mean, it can be a difficult thing to communicate with. I'm one of the boards that I'm on is a charitable board. And it's Polar Bears International. In fact, we just had a board meeting this morning. So this is why this is top of mind for me, because we are creating a group of short snippets, video snippets that help anybody explain climate change really simply. The polar bears are the canaries in the coal mine when it comes to climate change, right? Because their ice is melting, and that's how they eat. And so our role, polar bears is stop. Apologize. It's either a phone ringing or a dog barking. Thank goodness the dog's not barking. Anyway. Just to simplify that messaging of how you explain climate change so anybody can really understand it and go, oh, we can stop that, or we can turn it back. We got to do it soon, but anyway.
Yeah. And, I also think that there is also a piece there to say about the environmental impact of real estate agents and the impact that we can have on the homes in America. And for anybody that's wondering what I'm talking about there, the Climate Action Network puts on courses regularly. They've got one coming up later this month that, they speak to this in depth, and there's so much to say about it, right? Yeah. So there really is a major impact that you as a real estate agent have on the environment. It's true.
Yeah, absolutely. And don't we have a green sort of certification coming out?
We've got one coming. We sure do.
Great. That's so great. I'll be doing all my real estate transactions with a green certified agent.
That's it. Yeah, that's something that's always been top of mind at 1EXP is how we make these certifications for folks like, we would love to eventually have allyship certifications for all of our different resource groups so that you're working with a realtor who knows your community and cares.
Yeah.
I think it's a beautiful thing. So,
and to that point, Cody, if I could, because that's one of the other things I just wanted to briefly mention. One of the benefits of this kind of a culture that you're creating is particularly around diversity, is people want to do business with people like them. So if you have a diverse environment of belonging, you can go out and get into markets within your own communities that you might not otherwise be able to infiltrate. You can get into global markets that you might not be able to, get a foothold in because you're not part of that culture. And that's just, for people to miss that, for a woman wanting, wanting to climb the corporate ladder, she's looking for a company that is promoting women within the organization, right? Not interested in going to work for a company that isn't. So, it just really, really helps attract new business.
It does. And, it's one of those things too, where we are in a current landscape with this sort of thing, where walking the walk is paramount. You cannot talk the talk. It's not about words. People don't care about words, right?
Yeah.
You can make a pink version of your logo and say you're pro woman all you want to, but you have to be able to demonstrate that.
Absolutely.
It's the same across all communities. And what we tell people all the time is our resource groups are not restrictive to you need to be part of that community to join the group. If you want to learn more about a community, or you find that the market that you want to sell to is a different community, you can go and learn how to inclusively sell to those people, inclusively talk to those people, learn to inundating yourself in someone's culture is a miraculous thing for you as a person, right?
Yeah.
That's called human growth.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what it's about.
That really is what it's about.
Never-ending learning and growth. Yeah.
I'm a big believer in is another acronym I'll throw at you, but it's one from my old days at Bank of New York Mellon, is continuous process improvement, CPI.
Oh, yeah. There you
where
go.
you just constantly, you listen to everyone's voice, regardless of the hierarchy and all of that business. You listen to everyone's voice and take it for what it is. And if there is a way that you can shave a second off of your process over a year, that adds up, right?
Yeah. It's so true. It reminds me of, I was a big, still am too, a Tony Robbins fan, and grew up sort of at his knees. And he used a language, constant and never-ending improvement, CANI, sort of modeled after Kaizen, that Japanese philosophy. But it's like, process improvement, never-ending improvement. That's what we're about.
That's it. And, surround yourself with people that challenge you. That's growth. And we offer that a lot here.
Yeah. And learning from people that are different than you.
It's so true. Yeah. It's
brilliant.
So important. Yeah. That's our diversity thought proposition that we talk about all the time, is a room full of people that all come from different backgrounds, may come to the same answer, but it's up to the manager, the person overseeing that team, to look at how all of them did their long math to come to the solution. You can learn so much from that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, Peggie, this has been a beautiful conversation. I end every one of these Culturecast episodes with a question that I'll pose to you now, which is to anybody coming into EXP Realty. Their first day is today. What should they know about our company?
Oh, wow. Well, hopefully they've learned a lot about the company as they've listened to this. But you know what it is? I can speak from a personal experience. What got me the hook, that is so authentic to who EXP is that we are a absolutely customer-centric organization. I know that, Glenn's vision and purpose and mission and outcome is to be the most agent-centric brokerage on the planet. And I see that in the decision-making and how decisions get made. I mean, I even look at the sustainability strategy, and here's something that I'd want everyone to know. As we looked at that materiality assessment to develop the sustainability strategy. It all was about being customer-centric. It is about empowering people development. So look at everything EXP does for our customer, for our agents. How between one EXP and then all of the learning and development that goes on that our agents have access to. It's about building inclusive and equitable communities. That's the second pillar of the sustainability strategy. So think about it: empowering people, building, these inclusive and equitable communities, and then advancing these positive climate solutions, which everybody and their children and grandchildren are going to benefit from. So, that's who EXP. That's who EXP is from a sustainability perspective. So, that's what I'd want them to know.
That's brilliant. Well, listen, I just want to thank you so much for joining me here today. This has been such a thrill for me. And for anybody else that wants to subscribe to the Culturecast, we're available on YouTube, Spotify, Podbay, Apple Podcasts, and coming very soon to KGCI Radio, Real Estate on Air. So find us there, follow us, and we will see you next time.